Okay, so first we're going to start with the fabric. We need 3 pieces of fabric. We need 2 for the handle and 1 for the body of the bag. Now I just want to say right from the get-go, this is a woven fabric. So there's a stretchy side and there's a firm side. The stretchy side I like putting from east to west, and the more firm side I like putting from north to south. The reason being, when you put something heavy in the bag, you don't want it to stretch and distort. Same thing for the handles, you don't want the handles to stretch out. So I put the stretch part of the fabric from left to right, east to west. And for the handles, the long side is the firm side, and the stretchy side is on the end here. Okay, now that we've discussed that, let's start with the body of the bag. The body of the bag is going to be 40 inches by 16 inches. So the 16 inches will be the stretchy side and the 40 inches will be the firm side. If you don't have a 40-inch piece of fabric, you can always sew 2 20 1/4 or 20-inch panels of fabric together. This 40-inch long piece of material isn't a hard and fast rule. It doesn't need to be exactly 40, so it's just to give you an idea of the size of the bag that you're going to end up with if you just follow the measurements of the bag I'm making. So the first thing I did was I measured 2 inches down, put a mark on each side, connected them. Then I went another inch down from there, put 2 more marks and connected it. So you have a line at 2 inches and you have a line at 3 inches. Those are there because what we're going to do first is we're going to hem this over and iron it. And normally, because I'm not a beginning sewer, I would use my fingers to feel the edge of that and turn it over so I know I'm right there at the edge. But for beginning sewers, I put an extra line there so that when you fold it over, you don't have to be feeling around. You can just fold it over to the next line and iron it. So we're going to iron those 2 creases in on both ends of this bag, and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I've done is, as you can see here, is I've ironed this over twice. Once and then again. So I got a nice 1-inch inside hem in there. So the next step will be, we're going to move this out of the way, is to make the handles. Now these handles are 4 inches wide. Let me open this up because I've already ironed these to take one step ahead and make this video a little bit shorter. They're 4 inches wide because they're going to be a 1-inch handle. Whatever you decide to make, it's a 1-inch handle, so you multiply it by 4, so you need a 4-inch piece of fabric. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half, iron it. Then you're going to take one side, fold it to the middle, and iron it. Open it back up, take this side, fold it in the middle, and iron it. So that you have both sides that fold to the middle, and then you fold it over. And when you do that, you can take an iron to it so it helps it stay closed. But remember, when you iron it, to make sure you take this open end here and you line it up as well as you can as you're ironing it, because it'll help you when it comes to sewing. So now that these handles are basically made, what we're going to do is we're going to use the sewing machine to sew down the open end first. You want the open end sewn first, so you'll sew down the open end first, and then you'll sew down the closed end. Now you don't necessarily have to sew the closed end, but I like to make it symmetrical. So if there's a row of stitching down one side, I like to put a row of stitching down the other. Okay, I hope you can see this, but I have a stitch in the ditch foot from my machine. It's got a little bracket that comes up, goes across the top, and it has that little divider in the middle that you can see. And it's supposed to run along the ditch, like if you're quilting or something and you want to stitch in the ditch, it's supposed to run along that ditch, and with your needle centered you should be able to sew in that ditch. But what I do is, if you look at my needle here, what I do is when I put that foot on, I click it to the left like that. I think it goes over like 1/8 of an inch or something like that. So that's centered. I'll put that foot on, and then I'll move that slightly to the left. It can either go to the left, center, or right. That's it. That's all it does. So I'll move it to the left, and that'll give me a 1/8 of an inch top stitch on my handle. So that's what I'm going to do next. Sewing machine, as you can see, the needle comes down like 1/8 of an inch. Can I show that? Can you see that? Let me try zooming in. It's a little bit too much. Sorry about that, guys. So it's coming down. I'm going to do it by hand here. So it's coming down just on the inside, that 1/8 of an inch into the fabric, and that's exactly what I want. Now I'm going to do the other side, and really all I'm going to do is run it through my fingers, because all the fidgety stuff was already done on that side. So let me back out more. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still focused in there. And then I'll just put, let me see if I can come out a little bit more. I'm going to just put my fingers down and let it run through my fingers. So it shouldn't be fidgety, and it should remain straight. Just do the same thing to the other handle, and we'll move on to the next part. So now that the two handles are done, it's time to start constructing the bag. So what you want to do is take your bag, take each end of the bag, and you're going to fold it over one side to the other, and I like to crease it with my fingernail to find the center of the bag. Then what you're going to do is, where is my clear plastic? It doesn't matter. I'll just use my board here. Then what you're going to do is measure over 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a mark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a mark. That's where your handle is going to rest. So what you'll do is, I take the center of my handle and I center it on the mark I just made. So I'll put it under there, on the mark I just made, and I will clip it. Then I'll run this, I usually go by this edge over here on the outside, and I'll make sure the edge runs straight. To the outside of this side. Let me trim this excess thread off, and I'll center it there. I mean, if you're not selling the bag, it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, just as best as you can do. Then get over there, clip that on. So now when you pick this up, you can feel this is the inside of the handle. So just make sure the handle is perfectly aligned and it's not twisted. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your elastic, and what I sometimes do is I will grab my sewing machine. I'll grab my sewing machine and I'll sew the two ends together, just so I know they're not going to come undone. I'm going to do that real quick. Real quick. Okay, I've sewn the two ends together. They don't have to be sturdy. It just has to be. It's the middle right there. It just has to be. It's, you know, it held together so it doesn't fall apart. So what I'll do is I'll put that in here more or less in the center. I'm not too pressed about having it have to be exactly in the middle, because I'm only using this for myself and it's only like a lightweight bag, so I'm not too concerned about it. So what I'll do now is I'll put it back in the machine, use the same setting that I made for the handles, and I'll make a 1/8 inch hem right there. And what I'll do is I'll back stitch over the handle, I'll back stitch over the elastic, and I'll back stitch over this handle. Okay, so this edge is sewn right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to raise this up like that, fold that up, and we're going to clip it. I'll clip it on both sides, make sure it's secure. Then I'll fold this end up like that, clip that. Now I'm not worried about the elastic, because as far as the elastic is concerned, I don't want a piece of elastic sticking up like that when I'm using the bag. So what I'll do is I'll let the elastic just stay down like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way along the top, and we'll back stitch over the handle, we'll back stitch on the end of this elastic, and we'll back stitch on this handle as well. Okay, now that that's done, what I did was I did the bottom seam, the top seam, and then what I like to do, me myself, is that I put another top stitch down the center, back stitching over each handle. Now only one side gets the elastic, the other side does not. So now we're almost there. We're going to do a French seam. Now I know a French seam might sound kind of weird, but usually what you would do is put the right sides of the fabric together, sew down that seam, turn it back out, and you're all set. But when you do that, when you open up the bag, you're going to see this rough seam, the rough edges of the seam. So we're going to avoid that. What we're going to do is fold the bag up like we normally would if it were finished. Let me get some of this extra thread out of there. We're going to fold it up this way, right sides out, not right sides in, right sides out. We're going to clip it, and then I'm going to put a scant 1/4 inch seam there. And what that means is, what I'll do is I'll go on my sewing machine, set it for 1/4 inch, and then just flick that knob so that the needle moves over, so it's less than 1/4 inch. And the reason why we do that, the reason why I do that, is so that I don't have to go along and trim this edge less than 1/4 inch, because we're going to turn this inside out and run another 1/4 inch seam. So what you want to do is hide this first 1/4 of an inch seam. So if it's a 1/4 of an inch and you turn it the other way and you do a 1/4 of an inch, you know, it's good likelihood that you're going to see the edge of this sticking out of your finished hem, and you don't want that. So you can either do a 1/4 inch and then trim some of it off, or you could do what I do, is set my machine for a 1/4 of an inch and then just move my needle over a little bit. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I've sewn the sides. So what I'm going to do is open up this bag, turn it right side out, poke the corners out. And what I have, let me show you what I have. I have actually a large wooden knitting needle, bamboo knitting needle, and I'll use it sometimes just to poke those corners out. But you don't want to put too much pressure because you don't want to distort the corners. So then the next thing to do actually would be, I turn it over like this and I press the seam with my fingers, because you're going to want to flatten out these seams and roll these seams so that it's a good fold there. You don't want to be folding in any extra fabric into the seam. So I'll pull it open and just do that, and then I'll roll the seams to make them flat. Then after I do that, I'm just going to iron the whole thing to make sure it's nice and flat before I go to the next step. Okay, so this has all been ironed out. I've got some nice creases, and what I did next was measure 3 inches up, 1, 2, 3. I put a little mark there. 1, 2, 3, put a little mark there. So I'm going to now take my ruler, my metal ruler, and I'm going to put it on those marks. I'm not even going to draw a line where those marks are. I'm just going to do that, and then what I'm going to do is just fold this up. Fold it up. Make sure it's lined up. And I'm going to clip it in place. Just didn't want to go in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sew down this bag, including the flap. I can just take this ruler out now. So we're going to include the flap. Okay, I finished sewing down both sides. You'll have a little pocket here. So you're basically done. So what you'll do is turn it right side out. And you'll want to take these seams, maybe stretch them out a little bit, or press them out a little bit on both sides. And like I said, what I have is these little threads sticking out. So what you might want to do is, before you sew down the sides, make sure that these little threads are all trimmed on the other side of the fabric, so you don't have to go up and down the fabric trimming them off like I'm going to have to do. So here's the end product. What it is a 16, oh, sorry, nope, I'm wrong, 14.5 by 14.5 square bag. It has a 6-inch bottom to it, 6 inches wide, and all you do is you fold it in a third, fold it, put the handles up. You're going to have a little loop right here, loop right there, but you just fold it down. And then it's bish, bash bosh. I didn't do that right. Let's do it a little bit higher. Bish, bash, and then you just wrap the elastic around it and you're all set to go. So you can throw this in the glove box, you can throw this in your back seat, up on your visor, in another bag. Like, you could have one of these bags open with a whole bunch of these in there to go shopping. But like I said, these are lightweight bags. They're not meant to carry a lot of heavy stuff in it. So if you're just putting a few items in this bag or light items in this bag, then this is a good bag for you. These are two separate versions of the same bag. The only difference is this bag has the elastic attached to it and this bag does not. This bag, you can just slip the elastic right off it, stick it on your wrist. It's 8 inches, so it's large enough to just spin around your wrist. And then once you use the bag, empty it out, fold it up, you can just pop the elastic right back on. This, on the other hand, I don't know, it's an extra step, but it's also, this doesn't lay flat, and there's a twist to it. I don't know if you can see that. There's a twist to it. So you'd have to twist one end of the elastic before you sewed it on, so that when it does go around, it lays correctly. Plus, you have to sew it in more than one place to make sure that it stays firmly on the bag and doesn't pull off. So I'd go for this option myself. This option's okay if you don't want to lose the elastic and you don't care if it twists and if there's creases and it looks like that. If you don't care, then that's fine. Just do it that way. But I prefer it this way. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I have a lot of Christian content on this channel, and I plan on adding more. I've had a hiatus for about 2 years, but I'm hoping to come back stronger than ever. I've got one more sewing video, sewing tutorial to do, and then after that I'm hoping to start uploading more Christian content. So please check out the other videos on my channel. Please subscribe, and if you do, please click the notification bell and click all notifications, so that every time I post a video, you'll be notified. Thank you very much. God bless. Bye.